Are you confident? Do you have consistency? How much conviction do you have? I'm Daniel Gomez, the Confidence Architect, a business strategist, keynote speaker, executive coach, and best-selling author. On the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show, we will help you unlock confidence to create consistency and develop conviction. Together, we will discover the key that unlocks your confidence. Welcome back to another episode of the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show, where we motivate you, we inspire you, and man, are we going to educate you today. This guy, dear friend of mine, he's a sales genius, sales whiz. He has everything to do with sales. He's a dear friend of mine, Fred Diamond. How you doing, Fred? Woo!
Daniel, it's great to see you. Big fan, and seeing you in person, seeing you every day on social media, and watch your show, listen to your show, and I've read a couple of your books, so I'm so excited to be talking to you.
Man, well, I know the amazing person you are, Fred Diamond. Do me a favor, introduce yourself to the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show, please.
Yeah, my name is Fred Diamond. I'm based in Northern Virginia, right outside of Washington, D.C. My company is called the Institute for Excellence in Sales, and we help employers attract, retain, motivate, and elevate top-tier talent. Daniel, we're very fortunate to have companies like Salesforce and Amazon Web Services and Oracle as our corporate partners. And I'm also the host, of course, of You've Been a Guest on This, the award-winning Sales Game Changers podcast. We're approaching episode number 600. We've had 1.5 million interactions. We published our first book as it relates to the podcast called Insights for Sales Game Changers. And it's an interesting time to be in sales. So I'm excited to be talking to you.
Man, I'm loving it. Well, you know what? My background is sales, for those that don't know on my show, but I was in the automotive industry for almost 20 years. So I'll tell you what, is there any conversation that's dear to my heart, it's sales. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a part of the show where I tell you, get out your pen, get out your paper, because Fred's going to drop some massive, massive wisdom. And one thing I want you to get, ladies and gentlemen, right off the bat, without any sales, without any revenue, your business will not survive. Your organization will not survive. So Fred has a lot of experience. So get out your pen and paper, because you retain over 50% of the information you write down. So I want you to take advantage of this legendary sales genius, Fred Diamond, my friend. Fred, with that, Fred, let's dive into it. Sales is a touchy subject, right? And what I mean by that is you either love it or you hate it. And I'll never forget the first time I took my sales job, because I wasn't going to make it a career. I took my first sales job. People thought I was crazy. They're like, "You're going to go work for commission? Like, there's no guarantee." Well, they go, "Well, there's a little guarantee." Why do you think so many people struggle when they're used to getting an hourly rate, whether it's $10 an hour, $20 an hour, or salary of 40 or 50,000, to going into a commission-based sales position? Why do you believe that there's such a hard transition within that process?
Well, first of all, it's hard. So let's be clear here. The hardest job in any company, I believe, is sales. There's a lot of responsibility. In a lot of cases, you're the face of the company. And the reality too is, as you're talking here, you need to ask for things, right? We view sales, Daniel, as a profession. And like we like to say is, if you're a professional, what do you be doing? What are the skills you need to learn? What are some of the techniques that you need to put into play? How do you need to be almost like an athlete in regards to so many things? Like the great salespeople, they're, a lot of people disagree if you have to be extrovert or introvert. It really doesn't matter. Some of the best salespeople are introverts, but you have to have courage. You have to ask for deals. You have to ask for meetings all day long. You're making requests of people. Can I have your time? Can I have 5 minutes? Can I have an opportunity to explain to you what we do? Can we meet? A lot of people are afraid of that. They're afraid to ask. Salespeople aren't afraid to ask. Or if they are afraid, they realize that they need to do it to be successful, to take their companies to the next place.
Do you think, let me ask you this, because a big part of sales that I believe is the more confident ones do better. How big is confidence in having a successful sales career, Fred?
Oh, it's 100%. It's 100%. Again, I like to say, the great salespeople, they overcome any fears. And there are fears in asking for things. Even the people who are so confident in it, there's still a little bit of trepidation. There's a lot of rejection. We like to say that successful sales is, yay, and celebrating things like a meeting, the opportunity to be in front of a customer, have somebody reply to your email. That's something that is deemed worthy, if you will, something to celebrate, something to enjoy. But, also the other thing too is it's a skill. A lot of people think that sales is about, hey, confidence and like not having any type of regret or a lot of charisma. The most successful salespeople, Daniel, a lot of cases, they're the smartest people in the company. It's a process. You know, the people who've been great at sales, they just didn't do it for 6 months. They've been doing it for years. You know,
Yeah.
people ask me, Fred, what is your advice for me to get really, really successful in sales? I say, find something that's really, really needed in a really big customer. Again, I'm in the Washington, D.C. area, Northern Virginia. We have a lot of nice areas. There's a particularly nice area called Great Falls. It's got all the big mansions and things. And I tell people, the two people who live in Great Falls, people who are the lobbyists on Capitol Hill, but they're also the guy who sells Dell to the Navy, right? Or the guy who sells plastic to Air Force. You know, you got a
Yes.
customer who's buying hundreds of millions, if not billions, and you're the guy or lady who's in charge of that deal, and you don't get that deal the first day out of college. You know, it takes you maybe 20, 25 years before you get that opportunity, but you do the right things, you grow, you progress. You know, I interview a lot of VPs of sales on my Sales Game Changers podcast. And they just didn't wake up one day and say, you know, I'm done flipping burgers. I want to be a VP of sales at Microsoft. You know, it's been a 15, 20, 25, 30-year journey of doing the right things, being in the right place, serving a customer to have gotten there.
I love what you're saying. So, ladies and gentlemen, think about this. Where in your career in sales, in your business, right? Because if you're a solopreneur, if you're an entrepreneur, you need sales, you need revenue. If you're a small business with 10 employees or less, the owner, you're responsible for generating some of that opportunities for your team. You're a salesperson. What is something that you can give us, Fred? What are two sales wisdoms that I would say that you could give us that say you have a young entrepreneur, a young businessman, or someone, a young account executive starting at IBM. What are the two or three most important things that you think that you can give as advice to these people that can really help us and add value to the show today?
So the great salespeople, they are world class at one of three things. They are world class in understanding their customer, right? So when I say a customer, I mean typically an industry. They understand how the federal government works, how higher education works, how hospitality works, how financial services works. So they can have a nice prolonged career bringing solutions, selling things to companies in that space. They understand how the industry has changed. They understand the players. They understand regulation, so that when they're meeting with the highest level customer, the highest level person at the customer or team who makes those decisions, they're talking at the highest level business level, right? So understanding the industry intimately. If someone asks me, Fred, what's your number one bit of advice? Get to know an industry intimately. Number two is understanding a solution or a technology, being just so superb that you understand insurance, you understand CRM software, you understand development tools, you understand certain types of machinery. Nobody knows it more than you. So no matter who you meet with, you could offer a solution to the challenges that they're facing. And the third thing is the skill of the sales professional, being an athlete, being an NFL athlete, you know, a professional football player, professional basketball player in sales, which means you understand things like you and I right now, we're talking through a Zoom screen, right? You know, that we were on the call at 2:00. You said, Fred, be here at 2. We were at 2:00. We were ready to go. I didn't have to do, Daniel, can you see me? Is this on? Is the mic on? You know, I knew how to use the Zoom. I was ready to go. I'm standing in my office. I have a mat. I'm standing up. I'm wearing a sport coat so that I'm presentable to you and your audience. The same thing. You don't show up at 1:05. You show up at 12:57, right? And then at 12:58, you hit the Zoom button and you wait for it to start. Also, things like asking the right questions, preparing. I was on a call this morning. Someone reached out to me and they sell video related email services. And some SDR found me on LinkedIn, saw I was a business owner, scheduled a meeting with his account rep. I looked at their website. I said, okay, I'll take a call here. I showed up. The guy shows up on time. He said, what do you guys do? I'm like, what do we do? I said, didn't you look at my LinkedIn at least? Oh, give me a couple of minutes. He says, didn't you write a couple books? I'm like, come on, dude. I said, I'm here. I'm very busy. I'm giving you my time, right? Go look at the
Yeah.
LinkedIn. And he's looking at LinkedIn and I'm just sitting there. I said, you know what? I'm not going to give you the courtesy of my time or a response because you didn't do any preparation. So a professional prepares. Even if it's 3 minutes, you can get as much as you need in 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Maybe you take more, but those three things, Daniel: understand the industry, understand what you're bringing to that industry as a solution, and really being a professional at the art and science of sales.
I love everything you said, but I want you to hear this, ladies and gentlemen. I train on this in depth. I teach people when I do my sales training, Fred, and I love what you said. You don't want to be a salesperson because you're broke. A
Mm,
sales professional is someone who makes at least 100K.
mm.
And when I say this in the trainings, they're surprised. But what you just said struck a ah, right? Because think about this, ladies and gentlemen. I'll never forget a salesman, a saleswoman is just struggling. A salesperson is just doing what's necessary to get by. And if you're just doing barely what's necessary to get by in sales, you're not going to make it. You're going to be below average, and you're just going to be trying to make your quota the last day of the month, and you're going to be out of it within 6 months. But if you're a sales professional, you're making over $100,000 a year, and your self-image is different than that of a salesperson. Do you agree with that, Fred?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, when the pandemic kicked in, right, a lot of business shut down. You lost a whole lot of money that you had speaking gigs. I think it was like 40,000 bucks you had lined up, and it just basically went away. A lot of people, everything stopped, right? So we started doing webinars every single day from the Institute for Excellence in Sales, and it hit me. I said, you know what? If you're a sales professional, and right now is an example of, obviously it was a very, very challenging time for everybody. What are you doing? Are you spending the time complaining, waiting? That's not what a professional does. Are you spending your time working on your presentation skills, researching your industry, reading industry trade publications online to understand how is your industry being affected, right? Working on things like understanding your technology. Those are things a professional does. A golf professional during the pandemic, he's out there or she's out there 5 hours a day on the driving range and the putting green, right? As a sales professional, what are the things that you're working on? And if you're not
Yes.
working on those things related to your skill, your writing, your email crafting, all those things
Yes.
go into what it means to be a professional. And like you just said, Daniel, I've gotten so accustomed to saying that we at the Institute for Excellence in Sales support sales professionals. It is truly a profession, and the cream rises, man. And you got to put the work in, and you got to be smart, and you learn. You got to ask questions. You got to be curious. You got to get mentors. You got to read books.
Yes.
You got to read the Millionaire Mind. Those. You got to listen to podcasts, etc.
Yeah, and I love that because I think, ladies, I want you to hear this, ladies and gentlemen, because Fred's on point. He's definitely on point. Sales professional is a whole different level. Think about this, ladies and gentlemen. What if I told you this? Sales industry, as a sales professional, did you realize that there's so many millionaires that are created because of sales, Fred? Really, people that are in the sales profession as sales professionals have had more millionaires created than any other position out there, ladies and gentlemen. And that's a true fact. Think about that. Because there's no limit to what you can make. There's no limit. The only limitation is the limit you put on yourself. So think about this. Write this down, ladies and gentlemen. Where in your sales career, where in your sales, you as an entrepreneur, are you limiting yourself?
Hmm.
Think about that. Maybe you don't have the self-image of a sales professional. Maybe you have the self-image as I'm just a salesperson and it is what it is because you have the wrong stigma, you have the wrong association with that. No, listen to what Fred's saying. Once you make that shift internally and you change that self-image from salesperson to sales professional, you start to see yourself in a different capacity. And the truth is this: when you see yourself in a different capacity, ladies and gentlemen, your client's going to see you in a different capacity. Wouldn't you agree with that, Fred?
Yeah, it's interesting as you're talking about this. Uh, you need to view yourself, and it goes back to some of the examples I used before of someone who's bringing real value to your customer, right? And the people who are the most successful salespeople, again, like I mentioned before, the guy who sells Dell computers to the Navy, whoever sells, plastics to the Air Force, you that didn't just happen. You had to be thinking about what value are you bringing your customer, and even more important, the customer needs to understand that you're bringing value to them. And you just don't show up. You got to think it through. There's like techniques, Daniel. You got to let them do the talking. There's there's an acronym that we recently were exposed to that I love, and you know it. It's wait. Why am I talking? The customer, system one thinking, it's called. The customer wants to come up with their own solutions. Now, you help them. They would rather come up with something on their own than be told, this is what you need to do. So sales is a great thing, Daniel. It's about service. It's about helping the customer achieve what they need to achieve, because the customer is usually going to be on a mission. If somebody works for a customer, let's say the government, they devoted their lives to helping security or defense or health and human services or roads so that people can travel across the country, whatever it might be, right? So they have a mission. You're helping them achieve their mission. Customers in the healthcare space, they're obviously mission driven. Maybe for whatever reason, they want to make sure that people are eating healthy, people are getting the right medicine, access to medical professionals. If you're helping make that process quicker, faster, and smoother, then you're helping them achieve their mission. So the only reason, Daniel, that we find that people are adverse to the concept of being in sales is where they think of it as, like you said in the beginning, it's a transaction. How do I get, Daniel, what do I got to do to get you to buy this pen? That ain't sales, man. That's going to eventually run. It's going to run its course, and you're going to be out of business or something quickly. But if you have the mindset, the millionaire mindset of, I'm helping my customer achieve their mission, which I believe in.
Yes,
I believe in, because I'm going to be supporting them, then the possibilities are endless.
I love that. So I love what we're talking about. So, ladies and gentlemen, think about this. Are you approaching your sales professional career as a great problem solver? The person who solves the great problems, like Fred said, is his second example. What problem are you solving? If you don't have the answer to that simple but most powerful question in sales, then how do you expect to let the customer know how you're going to solve the problem or what you're even solving? You're going in there with the right, instead of going in there with the with really like a 9 millimeter approach, you're going in there with the shotgun approach, and you got these pellets everywhere. Well, you're making a mess. But if you're laser focused and you got your laser on the range and you're going to hit that target on the bullseye, the question I want you to write down, ladies and gentlemen, as you're listening to this podcast is, what problem am I solving for my client? Or what problem are my services that I provide solving for my potential client? Or what problem is my product solving? Think about it. I mean, it's as simple as that, but I love the way you said it, because so many people, Fred, that I've seen in sales is they don't even know what the hell they're solving, right? They don't. Well, what are you selling? Well, what's the problem you're solving? I don't know. Well, then how do you expect to have a conversation about that? And to Fred's point, and then I want your perspective, Fred, is right. If we go into a sales meeting and I'm asking you, well, Fred, what's the number one, right? You're here, you want to go here, there's a gap. How do you, what do you think what do you think needs to be done to solve that problem? And then they're gonna, like you said, they're gonna tell you what they, right? Wait, why am I talking? And they're gonna tell you everything you need to need, everything you need to know to help them solve that problem.
Yeah, it's the other thing too, Daniel, is more than ever over the last 2.5 years, everybody, including your customers, has been challenged, right? Everybody's been challenged personally, financially, relationship wise, business wise, for obvious reasons, right? So everybody's thinking about their what's in front of them right now. How do we recover from the last 2.5 years? How do we better interface with our customers? Do our services and solutions and products, are they even of value anymore, right? So it's really a challenge, because the customer, you might get a meeting. Yeah, maybe there's some history, maybe something that you said appeals to them, but everybody, more than in my career, are really focused on their own things and getting past their own challenges, because their customers are faced with their own challenges. Their customers are faced with their own challenges. So, you need to come to the table with some serious, ready to go, thought through, valuable solutions. You can't waste their time. They don't need you unless they need you, right?
Yes.
They may want to be courteous and give you some time because, you have a history and, they're curious in what you're up to, but they're only going to move to the next stage, Daniel, if there's truly, I hate to use the word pain because it's such a trite, overused word in the sales world, but there really is something that needs to be solved, and they only have time to think about solving those problems. So, you need to come to the table with, we have something that's going to help you with what we think, what we've read about, what we've heard from some of your competition is truly a challenge.
I love what you said there. You heard you slipped something in there, and I want to bring this to the surface. Ladies and gentlemen, you need to ask yourself this: is my product even relevant? Is my service relevant? I mean, think about that. Maybe your sales is down because you're doing business that you were doing business 5 years ago. And I mean, think about that, Fred. You made a good point. I lost $45,000 March 15th or March 16th of 2020. But instead of crying there and feeling sorry for myself, I started my podcast, which led to people that I would have never talked to, like yourself. And then many of those people said, "You do what?" And it was not intentional. We ended up getting business because of the podcast. And then two, we started the Sticker Shock Speaking Academy during COVID. So a lot of the stuff that I was doing, not that it wasn't relevant speaking, but live speaking was closed down. So what was I going to do? Cry and complain like you're saying, or am I going to provide a service that people want to? Right? Everybody wants to belong to something bigger. So ask yourself, ladies and gentlemen, is what I'm offering still servicing the way it was prior to COVID? Right? And not that we're playing the victim with COVID, but it did change the way we do business. And if you're not right, if you're not being innovative, if you're not growing or restructuring or doing something differently to stand out, then how do you expect people to find out what you're doing? And you got to talk about it. I think so many people, Fred, and this is kind of cute because you worked there at the CIA, right? Well, you worked there in Washington D.C. Something that I do in my big sales training, I said, you don't work for the CIA. Like, there's so many sales professionals and not more the sales professional, but the salesperson that thinks they work for the CIA and they don't tell anybody what they do. Do you still see that sometimes?
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know,
Does
you
that make
got it.
sense?
It definitely does. By the way, I've never worked at the CIA, and if I did, I would never tell you that I did. Um, but yeah, it's, you know, when you're in sales, also, you never know where that opportunity might come from. You know, I've been in so many situations where, again, I do live in the DC area. I'm in Northern Virginia. We have the government, we have hospitality, we have trade association, we have, of course, the whole legislative world out there. So there's plenty of people to be selling to, and you'll be at a kid's softball game or a kid's soccer game, and you'll be with a parent for a year, and then finally the parent says, "Oh yeah, where do you work? Oh, I work for Washington Hospital System. Oh, that's my biggest prospect. Oh yeah, what do you do? I'm in procurement." You know, and you hadn't in a year, you hadn't shared or even asked. Now, that's something you need to be walking around every time you meet a parent. Gee, what do? You know, you want to, ingratiate yourself and you want to show interest in the kids. But it's you never know where that lead is going to come from. In sales, you can't be ashamed of it. Even if you're an employee, we tell people, everybody's in sales. My good friend Todd Cohen wrote a book called Everyone's in Sales, and everybody from the CEO to the receptionist to the person answering the phones, we're all representing our company. We all have a responsibility to, maybe you're not going to be carrying a quota if you're the woman or the man who answers the phones, but at the same time, we have to be on the lookout because getting customers is critical. It's everybody's job, depends upon it. So we all need to have the comfort. And then, of course, there are the real salespeople who are truly responsible for the sales professional process of moving leads or whatever to eventually becoming customers, and then hopefully long-term customers as well.
So, ladies and gentlemen, write that down. Don't keep your career, don't keep your position as a sales professional a secret. You have to go out there and put it. You have to go out there and especially if you're in sales and in corporate, if you don't have a LinkedIn profile listening to this podcast, you best get yourself a LinkedIn profile because Fred, I met you on LinkedIn and so many people I think the new hot fad for social media is IG, which is great, but you gotta they have to see you as a legitimate business. They have to see you as a legitimate sales professional. And what better credibility to get than to have when I first started my LinkedIn account, I almost closed it down because there was no interaction, Fred. Like literally for the first 6 months, crickets. And I got discouraged, right? Because over here I'm getting all this engagement and here I'm not. But imagine if I would have given up, I wouldn't have met you. I wouldn't have met other amazing business leaders. I wouldn't have met and had the opportunity to be on business podcasts. And I would have gotten just business from LinkedIn. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you're a sales professional or you're thinking about an aspiring career in sales, you need to develop a LinkedIn profile. You just got to do that and listen to what Fred's saying. So, A, right? What's your target audience? Who do you want to serve? B, what problem am I solving? And C, it was what was this? What was this number? What was C, Fred? I lost my train of thought there.
Yeah, it's who do you serve? What are you bringing to them?
Yes.
And how could you most effectively bring it to them as well?
So because of this, think about this. Fred being in sales, having a podcast with sales. You have a book in sales, don't you, Fred?
I do. It's called Insights for Sales Game Changers.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'll show it to
Tell
you
us
right here
about
on this.
that.
Yeah. So basically, I also do the podcast. It's called the Sales Game Changers podcast. And you know why I started doing a podcast, Daniel? I started doing a podcast because my customers were VPs of sales. They were the ones, men and women, who would decide to become a member. So my customers at the Institute for Excellence in Sales are called, at the time they were called members. Now we call them partners. I had to physically, not many people knew about it. I had to figure out a way to be in the room, not the Zoom room, but the physical room. And before the pandemic, I was literally driving all over the place. I had a couple nice mics. I had a beautiful recorder, and I would interview people in their office or in their conference room about their sales career. And people started liking it. I used to be a DJ, so I'm comfortable at the mic. I used to be a newspaper reporter at one point. So I like asking questions and I'm confident asking questions. I have that curiosity, which is also a critical sales success habit, if you will, or a characteristic. And I just started interviewing people all the time. Next thing I knew, we had like over 1 million interactions. We had, like close to 200 shows. Then when the pandemic kicked in, we started doing them over the internet every single day. And next thing I knew, we had just so much great content. We transcribed every show. So we came up with 14 of the most commonly uttered words on the podcast: leadership, teamwork, empathy, questioning, prospecting. And we found, like the top 15, 20, 30 quotes from over the 450 episodes we had done. And we put it into a book. It's been great. I've been sending them to our prospects, to our customers at the Institute for Excellence in Sales. And it's been a lot of fun. A lot of people who aren't in sales have read it and said it's been very inspiring, hearing from some of the top sales professionals. So we're very proud of Insights for Sales Game Changers.
So go to Amazon right now, get the copy of that book. It's going to definitely help you. So let me ask you this: what was your biggest? Yeah, you wrote the book. What's been one of the biggest takeaways you got from your own book?
From this book, listening. It goes back to what we said before about weight. A lot of times when I would interview sales leaders, I would say, what is your super? I hate using super. What is something you're really good at? And almost invariably, they would also say listening. And in the beginning, Daniel, the first 100 shows, I would say, okay, great, good. Well, next question. But then I started saying, how are you a great listener? Give me some things that you can recommend to my podcast listeners to help them become great listeners. And then they would say things like, well, getting better at asking questions, or really working hard, to listen, really working hard to not speak, and not to be ready with your next comment, to truly be open for the possibility of what somebody may be saying to you, and showing genuine interest, and also preparing for the interaction so that when they did say something, you were ready to go back with an intelligent follow-up question. It seems like, oh yeah, I'm a great listener. Well, you're probably not. You're probably not if you're so many people are waiting to talk. Gee, oh, that's great. Oh, wow, that's fascinating. Are you done yet? Are you done yet? Are you done yet? Oh, good, you're done. Now it's my opportunity to say something. But I've worked really hard to let people do 90% of the talking in meetings, no matter who I'm talking to.
I'm laughing because I used to be a young Daniel Gomez.
Yeah.
But in all seriousness, ladies and gentlemen, I'm loving this conversation. Think about this. Are you listening to understand the customer's needs and wants?
Mm. Yeah.
Are you listening to understand the customer's needs and wants? Or are you just listening to react? That's what Fred's saying. And if you're listening to react, you're costing yourself business somewhere. You're costing yourself sales. You're costing yourself revenue, money. So think about that. I would rather listen to understand, as Fred's saying, than listen to react and cut your potential client short and let them vent it out. They're going to tell you everything you need to know to do business with them if you listen, like Fred says. And Fred, I would even say, I would even take it a step further. That's probably one of the top two or three traits as a top sales professional. They're great listeners because when you're a great listener, you listen to the details and you learn how to probe a little bit deeper.
No, that's a great point. And like I mentioned before, people want to discover things on their own. Sometimes people need to be told, hey, I need your advice, Daniel. How would you handle the situation? And then, yes, I'll tell you what's going on. I want you, because I trust you, to say, Fred, I think you should do these three things, or have you thought about this? But in most cases, in a customer situation, they want to discover things. They want to come up with the solutions. They want to bring the value to their companies. And that only happens when you give them the opportunity to process and think, and to then offer solutions.
Well, Fred, you've been a blessing to be on the show, and I know you have a second book. Tell us a little bit about your second book. I know we're coming towards the last stretch of our amazing episode here, and thank you for dropping so much value. What is this second book that you got? When I heard it's helping a lot of people. It's been a blessing to many lives. Tell us a little bit about more about it.
Yeah, I'll show you a picture here. It's called Love, Hope, Lyme: What Family Members, Partners, and Friends Who Love a Chronic Lyme Survivor Need to Know. Lyme disease is a tick-borne illness. Excuse me. It's at the epidemic level, Daniel. It happens when someone gets bit. It's all over the world. It's all over the country. It's not just in the New England area or the Mid-Atlantic, if you will. And basically, when someone gets bitten by a tick, and the tick is a carrier of the Lyme bacteria, and there's also other things, not just Lyme, that the tick can commute onto the body. If it's caught quickly, there's going to be some pain, but you should get rid of it with some antibiotics. If you reach a stage where it either hasn't been diagnosed properly, maybe you were bit years ago, decades ago, scores ago, it reaches what's called the chronic stage, and there's no cure. It's a hideous, insidious disease. There's probably 3 to 4 million people in the United States alone who have what's called chronic Lyme disease. Someone who I cared about had chronic Lyme disease, so I decided to learn as much as I could. I discovered, Daniel, that there was no book written for family members and friends. And a lot of people think that the person's faking it. You can't see the disease. So why are you always in bed? Why can't you work? Why are you always so fatigued? I wrote the book, again, to help people who love somebody with the disease understand what they're going through in order to be a better supporter and caregiver.
Well, what I love about you, and I want to honor you with this, is that, ladies and gentlemen, while Fred was being a sales professional, being a successful business owner, he attended to the needs of the family member, and he was still successful. He didn't let the Lyme disease derail him or get him off track. He still showed up to work every day, still showed up to LinkedIn every day, still showed up to his webinars every day. So I want to honor you for that, Fred, because I think so many times people want to be successful in any career, especially sales, right? Because you have to have that focus in sales. And I want to honor you because while you were going on this journey, and at the heat of the moment, right, when it was most heaviest, I guess is a word to say, with the Lyme disease in your family, you didn't allow it to derail you. You showed up. Regardless, you showed up. And so many times people stop. And then all that momentum they built up to that, they got to start all over again. So I want to take a moment and honor you with that. And really just say thank you for being a true professional, a true friend, and for you writing this book. Can you show the book one more time? So, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't heard of Lyme disease, there used to be a very popular celebrity named Justin Bieber that has Lyme disease, and it's a true fact. So get this book; it'll give you some understanding to know someone with Lyme disease, and it's Fred's way of giving back to the community, giving back to the world. Fred, last but not least, what's a quote or a scripture that you rely on in those tough days when you're having those adversity challenges with sales, and you can't give away a book? What do you rely on to keep you going with momentum at that moment?
Yeah, I just want to acknowledge you, if you don't mind, before I give you that quote. I knew you on LinkedIn, followed you, you followed me. And I reached out to you, and your, I'll just say the word counsel. We spent some time together when this was kind of unfolding for me, when I realized that this particular person who I love very dearly was struggling with this disease. And I reached out to you, and we spent some quality time. I'll be honest with you, praying. we're both of different faiths, but I believed in your authenticity, in your conveyance of your message. And matter of fact, I was sitting right there about 5 feet away from where I'm standing right now. So I just want to acknowledge you for helping me at a very, very difficult time. And I then picked up your first book. I don't know if it was your first book, but it was a book you had written before, Millionaire Mind, and followed you. We actually met in person. So I definitely believe for the listeners, ladies and gentlemen, you're an extremely authentic, caring person who really does believe that you are providing value for your constituency. And I've met a bunch of them, and they're truly appreciative for the work that you're bringing to the marketplace. So I just want to make sure that you're acknowledged properly as well. The quote that I now use all the time is, "Only a life lived in the service to others is a life worth living." It's an Einstein quote. My favorite Einstein quote prior to that was, "You could view the world as everything is a miracle or nothing is a miracle." But I've always been of service, Daniel. I've been on boards. One of the charities that the Institute for Excellence in Sales donates to is called the Northern Virginia Family Service, provides a huge amount of value and service to families in the DC region, the Mid-Atlantic region. But I realize that we're more valuable to the planet if we view ourselves as providing value and service to others, because there's so many people, Daniel, you and I are fortunate. I've come to realize, if you're an active poster on LinkedIn, you're a fortunate person, but there's a lot of people who are struggling, and whatever we can do to make their struggles go away would be much more valuable.
Awesome, man. How do we get a hold of you, Fred? How does somebody wants to connect with Fred Diamond? How do they do that, sir?
Find me on LinkedIn, Fred Diamond, or find me on Facebook. I've added, Daniel, 1,500 Facebook friends in the Lyme world over the last 3-6 months since the book has been out. So I'm always on LinkedIn or Facebook. Those are the two places to find me.
Thank you for joining us, Fred. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll have his detailed stuff in the show notes. So if you want to connect with him even more, we'll have that there on our episode. And until next week, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us here. That's a wrap for this episode. And if you're stuck in life, if you're stuck in business, go to danielgomezglobal.com. That's danielgomezglobal.com, and do our free assessment for entrepreneurs. And better yet, go to our new website, themakingsofamillionairemind.com. That's themakingsofamillionairemind.com. Get your copy of your book. Get our course, 27 powerful modules that are going to radically change the way you think. And even next November 18th and 19th here in San Antonio, we're having our boot camp. Our next one's going to be next year in 2023, May 5th and 6th here in San Antonio, the Makings of a Millionaire Mind Boot Camp. Until next week, we'll see you here on the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show. Thank you for joining us.
This is Daniel Gomez, and thank you so much for tuning into our show today. We'd love your feedback. Please drop us a comment, and thank you for leaving us a review. Don't forget to subscribe to our show and share this episode with a friend. And my free gift for listening to our show today is a copy of my best-selling book, You Were Born to Fly. To get your free copy, go to danielgomezinspires.com and get your copy today. That's danielgomezinspires.com. And to elevate your life and business even more, follow me on social media at Daniel Gomez Inspires on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Together, we will discover the key that unlocks your confidence.